What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, May 16th, 2024, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now, it is 15:16 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Russia, the Middle East, and Asia. So I want to just update you guys on what happened last night. So I went live last night because there was an unusual flurry of nuclear attack options being broadcasted by U.S. nuclear forces. And what was very concerning about last night was that Skymaster messages were going out again. Now, Skymaster messages are the highest priority nuclear attack options broadcasted by the U.S. military. So if Skymaster messages are going out, it means something serious is going on. The only thing more important than a Skymaster message would be the emergency war order, and that's the actual order to launch the missiles, okay? So these are nuclear attack options of the highest priority that were broadcasted yesterday evening and last night, and I was live covering it. And for some reason, it just quieted down late last night, and today it's been pretty quiet, but something spooked our nuclear forces yesterday. And what that was, I have no idea. But what you're looking at here are the flight paths of several U.S. nuclear warplanes and doomsday planes and also VIP planes. So we had a U.S. Air Force VIP plane go from D.C. to Colorado Springs late last night when these Skymaster messages were going out. And Colorado Springs is home of NORAD and Cheyenne Mountain, which is a doomsday bunker. Now, NORAD used to be located in Cheyenne Mountain, and then they temporarily relocated NORAD to Peterson Air Force Base while they were in the process of hardening Cheyenne Mountain to EMPs and making Cheyenne Mountain even more hardened and more resistant to direct nuclear blasts. And I don't know if they brought NORAD back into Cheyenne Mountain, but Cheyenne Mountain is one of the primary doomsday bunkers for the continuity of government here in the U.S. So VIPs would go there, government leaders would go there. And late last night, when all these Skymaster messages were going out, the highest priority nuclear attack options, we had this C-37A U.S. Air Force VIP plane go there. Now, we also had two Boeing E-6 Mercury's nuclear war command and control planes airborne last night when these Skymasters were going out. And then there was also a presidential doomsday plane airborne over Missouri, and it got aerially refueled over Missouri, which is very unusual for so late at night. It was at like 2200 hours Eastern time. Very unusual to have a doomsday plane up that late. Want to just show you guys what we have going on today. So we still have U.S. nuclear and strategic forces on high alert today. So we have two nuclear war command and control planes in the air this afternoon. And we had one that was off the coast of South Carolina doing some VLF work, communicating with our submerged nuclear armed submarines. We have one over northern Alabama right now. Now, what's interesting is we have two RC-135 reconnaissance planes that were patrolling here off the coast of Tampa, Florida, out in the Gulf. Very, very interesting and very unusual. So we have some major breaking news coming in from Russia. Apparently, Russia tested a space-based anti-satellite weapon with potential nuclear capabilities in 2022, according to the Wall Street Journal, citing unnamed U.S. officials. The officials said Russia had launched a satellite into space in February 2022 to test components for a potential anti-satellite weapon that would carry a nuclear device. However, the satellite that was launched doesn't carry a nuclear weapon, the Wall Street Journal reported. The U.S. House Intelligence Committee warned in February of a serious but unspecified security threat from Russia. Reports then followed that the threat related to Russia's desire to put a nuclear weapon into space. U.S. President Joe Biden later said that Moscow was indeed developing an anti-satellite space weapon, but it did not endanger people on Earth. He added that there had not yet been a decision to launch the weapon into space. The Russian satellite named the Cosmos 2553 was launched in February 2022. Happens to be the same month that Russia launched their invasion in Ukraine, and it has been orbiting Earth since then, operating as a platform to test non-nuclear components of the new weapons system. Officials told the Wall Street Journal. Russian officials have claimed that the Cosmos 2553 is intended for scientific research. This update was sponsored by My Patriot Supply. Guys, My Patriot Supply has brought back their 25% discount on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the discount, you got to use the link preparewithnYprepper.com. And the link is in the description below this video. But this 3-month emergency food supply has a 25-year shelf life. It includes over 2,000 calories per day, breakfasts, lunches, dinners, drinks, and snacks, all contained within 6 rugged water-resistant buckets, and free shipping is included. So use the link preparewithnYprepper.com to get $200 off or 25% off of the My Patriot Supply 3-month emergency food supply. The link is in the description below this video. Free shipping is included. They also have a general store where they sell all kinds of prepping and survival products, and they're always running various discounts. And to get to their general store, you just got to click on the My Patriot Supply logo when you get to preparewithnYprepper.com at the top of the page, and you'll see their general store where they sell all kinds of prepping and survival products, and they're always running discounts here. So use the link preparewithnYprepper.com to get 25% off of the My Patriot Supply 3-month emergency food supply, and the link is in the description below this video, which the U.S. says is unlikely. The Kremlin has previously denied that it has any intention to put nuclear weapons in space. So anytime Russia says something, you always think the opposite, okay? Just like when they were massing forces on the border of Ukraine and they said they had no intention of invading Ukraine and that this was just an exercise and they're allowed to move forces inside of their own borders. And now they're saying that they have no intention of putting nuclear weapons in space. So we better believe that that satellite does have nuclear weapons on it. And maybe that's why there was that panic 2 months ago or 3 months ago now in February. Okay, maybe that's why the Senate and the House were panicking over this unspecified national security threat. Maybe they found out that this satellite does have a nuclear warhead on it, and it's going to be used to take out other satellites. Or more than likely, I think that this is going to be a Russian first strike weapon to strike our critical military targets in the beginning stages of a massive Russian preemptive strike on the United States with nuclear weapons. Now, putting nuclear weapons in space, you could take out satellites with them, obviously, but you can also drop them from space down to wherever you want, and it cuts down on the warning time. See, normally we have about a 15 to 30 minute warning time. We have a 30-minute warning time if Russia launches missiles from the ground inside of Russia somewhere. We have a 15-minute warning time if they're launched from subs. So that gives us time to scramble our bombers so they don't get destroyed. Gives the president time to decide on a counterattack. And it gives our missile silos time to respond as well. But if you drop warheads from a satellite hovering over the U.S., the warning time is basically zero, okay? Maybe just 5 minutes when NORAD detects the warhead re-entering the atmosphere. And at that point, it's basically too late to scramble bombers or even potentially for the president to decide on a counterattack, okay? So this is very, very serious. I'm going to be monitoring the situation, but it looks like Russia has deployed some type of a satellite. They deployed it in February of 2022, the same month that they invaded Ukraine. In my opinion, that satellite that was launched by Russia 2 years ago was basically a weapon of insurance in case things were to escalate. They wanted to put that weapon up into space before they started their war in Ukraine. Okay, that's what I think. And the Egyptian army has deployed large numbers of armored units and air defense systems to the Sinai Peninsula in recent days. There are also heavy weapon systems there that are banned under the Camp David Treaty. Okay, so potentially Egypt and Israel could go to war after Israel enters Rafah. We'll have to wait and see, but this is huge news, guys. Egypt has not stationed air defenses and heavy weapons in the Sinai for decades, okay? And Egypt has recently stated that they will cut diplomatic ties with Israel if they go into Rafah. And also, the Egyptian foreign ministry has been working closely with the Iranian foreign ministry on forming a partnership. So Egypt and Iran are now going to be friends. That's very bad. And another sign that we're moving towards the tribulation period spoken of in the book of Revelation in the Bible. And Israel struck a massive Hezbollah missile factory in Baalbek, Lebanon, which is in northern Lebanon. They did this last night. And Israel's ambassador to the UN said today that the UN is a terrorist organization, and the Congo is suffering the biggest Mpox outbreak ever that could soon spread to the US after the arrival of a new ultra infectious deadly strain, a CDC report has warned. Okay, so in addition to the possibility of nuclear war, we now have this possibility of disease X and all these different diseases breaking out. And the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken apparently gave Ukraine the green light to use American weapons inside of Russia. Maybe that's why Blinken visited Ukraine recently, but this is unconfirmed as of right now. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken giving Ukraine the green light to use American weapons in Russia. The Slovakian Prime Minister was put into a medically induced coma after a 4-hour surgery after an attempted assassination yesterday. He was shot 5 times. And Slovakia's defense minister told Norwegian media yesterday that the Prime Minister of Slovakia is still in critical condition and that we may not know whether he will survive until 2 or 3 days. Okay? And after the assassination attempt on the Slovakian Prime Minister, the Polish Prime Minister started receiving death threats against him. And Poland and Ukraine are quickly working on a bilateral security agreement, according to Zelensky. We have instructed our teams to immediately start working on the text of the bilateral security agreement, Zelensky said after a phone conversation with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. This could bring Poland into the war if the agreement involves deploying troops into Ukraine in a contingency scenario where Ukrainian front lines collapse. And Denmark is going to send Ukraine a new military aid package worth €750 million. And 50 countries have confirmed their willingness to participate in the Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland. We heard Vladimir Putin say the other day that he is open to a peace deal in Ukraine, but it has to take into account the Russian desires and demands. And Ukraine accused Russia on Thursday of capturing dozens of civilians in the border town of Vovchansk and using them as human shields as Moscow wages a new offensive there. The head of police investigations in Ukraine's northeastern Kharkiv region said on television that 35 to 40 people were being held captive and that Russia was interrogating them. The Russians keep them in one place and actually use them as a human shield, as their command headquarters is nearby, Sergei Bolvanov said. We do not have information on whether there are children among the hostages. There were mainly elderly people who did not want to leave their homes. Wow. So Russia taking elderly people hostage in the Kharkiv Oblast. And we have some very concerning information coming out of Belarus. So, Belarusian railways are apparently again preparing to receive military cargo trains with military equipment, ammunition, and personnel of the Russian armed forces. So, Belarus is preparing their trains to get more equipment and ammunition and personnel from Russia. Very concerning. Could be another sign that Russia is planning to do something in the Baltics and Poland, or potentially a sign that Russia is going to attack Ukraine through Belarus again. And an Antonov 148 of the Special Flight Squadron of Russia, which is operated for the Russian intelligence service, the FSB, landed at the Grodno airport in Belarus, right on the border of Poland. According to inside information, Vladimir Kuleshov, the first deputy director of the Russian FSB and the head of the FSB border service, is on board. Kuleshov will take part in a meeting of the board of the Border Committee of the Union State of Belarus and Russia and hold a meeting with the Grodno regional governor Uladzimir Karanik in Grodno. So this is huge news, guys. Okay, Grodno is actually a Polish city, and Stalin took the western part of Belarus away from Poland after World War II because he wanted a buffer zone. So when they were carving up Eastern Europe after the fall of the Nazis and the death of Hitler, supposedly, Stalin wanted basically the eastern parts of Poland that normally extended into western Belarus. So there's a large Polish population still in Grodno in Belarus, and this city is literally just a few miles from the Polish border. So now we have the deputy director of the Russian FSB visiting that town, and also apparently the head of the FSB border service as well. Okay, so that is huge news. And we heard a couple of days ago from insiders in Belarus that Belarus was planning some kind of a hybrid attack on Poland with Wagner forces, Chechens, and Oman forces. And on May 16th, today, 2 Russian Sukhoi 30 SM fighter jets of the Russian Air Force arrived at the Baranovichi airfield in Belarus. Another sign that something is escalating. Another sign that something is about to go down in the Baltics and in Poland. And between May 21st and May 30th, 2 delegations of representatives of the main intelligence directorate of the General Staff of the Belarusian Armed Forces will visit the Lida and Grodno forward operating bases on the border of Poland and Lithuania. Okay, so 2 delegations of the main intelligence directorate of the Belarusian military will be visiting these 2 critical bases right on the border of Poland and Lithuania. And in Belarus, units of the 19th Mechanized Brigade were withdrawn from the area bordering Lithuania and replaced by a battalion tactical group of the 120th Mechanized Brigade. So sounds like they rotated out that initial brigade that they moved to the border of Lithuania that I reported on a few months ago with a battalion tactical group now. And the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs has put on the wanted list the former head of the Estonian police, Elmar Vaher, the former head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Urmas Reinsalu, as well as several officials from Lithuania, Latvia, and Poland. Okay, so the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs putting a lot of government officials in the Baltics and Poland on a wanted list. And there's going to be a referendum in Moldova on October the 20th of this year on Moldova's accession to the EU. And if that goes through, we could see Russia invade the Moldova very soon. So if there's going to be a referendum in October, I would almost bet you that Russia's going to try to do something before this referendum. And Russia has admitted that they have been bombing their own territory in Belgorod. Apparently yesterday, Russian planes dropped 3 Fab 500s on the Belgorod region at once, according to Russian media. And apparently some Turkish aircraft entered the Greek flight information region without submitting a flight plan. That is very, very concerning. So Turkey basically softly violating Greece's airspace. 14 Turkish helicopters and 2 Turkish naval aircraft entered the Athens flight information region without submitting a flight plan. And the Dow Jones reached an all-time high of 40,000 points today, breaking its previous record of 36,000 in 2021, boosted by strong Walmart earnings and softening inflation news. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ also saw gains after record highs. And yesterday at the University of California, Irvine, there was an evacuation order due to pro-Hamas riots, and police there cleared some pro-Hamas encampments. And what you're looking at here is some more NATO reconnaissance activity over Poland and the Baltics. Here you can see an Italian AWACS plane patrolling the border of Lithuania and Belarus, and also patrolling the border of Poland and Kaliningrad. Now, what's interesting about this particular flight path of this Italian AWACS is that it was doing this north to south loop here near the city of Gdańsk in northern Poland, and basically it was focusing all its efforts on Kaliningrad. And then it was also looping here along the border of Lithuania and Belarus. This is where Belarus just rotated out that mechanized brigade. Okay, and then it also did a little loop here in northeast Poland. Now, simultaneously, we had 2 aerial refuelers flying over Poland, one just north of Warsaw, and then one in northwest Poland near the Powice air base, which is where NATO has their most advanced equipment, air equipment, okay, fighter jets and planes in the Powice air base. This is where the UK moved F-20. This is where 6 F-22s were stationed at one point. I don't know if they're still there. And then there was also some B-2s stationed there at some point as well. And then we also had this German reconnaissance plane patrolling the border of Lithuania and Belarus. And then we also had this U.S. Air Force RC-135 rivet joint patrolling the border of Poland and Kaliningrad and Belarus and Poland. So you can see they're heavily focusing on Poland. And we also had 4 Apache helicopters operated by the UK flying in southern Estonia last night. And right now we have Forte 14 doing this massive reconnaissance pattern here in the southern Black Sea. Now, what's interesting is that it's very far away from Crimea. So this tells me that the Russians have their air defenses on high alert in Crimea. And so this thing doesn't want to get too close. But look where it's focusing its efforts, guys. It's focusing its efforts on this part of Ukraine and occupied Ukraine. You can see it's looping back and forth here opposite of this shoreline from Odessa to Crimea. And then also it's looping kind of parallel to Sevastopol as well. Normally, these planes go back and forth east to west along the entire Black Sea. So this is pretty unusual. But don't be surprised if there's another strike on Crimea tonight. There was a strike last night as well. And here's the flight path of that FSB plane that went to Belarus. It's an Antonov 148. And I want to show you guys the latest frontline situation in the Kharkiv Oblast. So you can see here the areas shaded in red are where the Russians are gaining. You can see they've already entered Vovchansk, and they have not updated this map yet, but I do believe the Russians are basically on the verge of taking all of the Vovchansk area. And once they do that, that opens the doors for them to push further south, because there's really not much down here besides these tiny little villages with like 30 houses in them. So Vovchansk is like the largest town in the area. So this is very concerning, and this is all happening just 15 miles from Kharkiv. They can get into artillery range of Kharkiv soon and then just start pounding Kharkiv with random artillery fire. Here's an aerial picture of Vovchansk. You can see the whole town is in smoke. The Russians are turning Vovchansk into basically Bakhmut. And here we have some video footage showing these new Russian markings, okay, the rune of Gungnir, which is some type of a pagan marking based on Odin. This apparently represents Odin's spear, and it's a symbol of like strength and indestructibility, essentially. But you can see all their vehicles here marked with these new markings, the rune of Gungnir, okay, multiple vehicles marked. You see that? So very interesting. And here's a picture of that. Here's some more pictures. And we also had a U.S. Air Force Constant Phoenix nuke sniffer plane take off from Diego Garcia late last night, right after the Skymaster messages went out, and it flew all the way up to India, and it was flying very low along the western coast of India, which is pretty interesting. And those planes can detect radiation in the atmosphere. They can also detect nuclear submarines. And then we also had a combat Sentinel plane patrolling the Yellow Sea again. They've been patrolling the Yellow Sea basically every day for the last week. And these planes are high priority reconnaissance planes. They send information directly to the president and the top generals here in the U.S., and they can pick up radar signals and radio signals. So this plane is basically sweeping this area, checking for any missile complexes and any radio and radar stations. So that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight with more breaking news. So make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell icon down below so you get notified when I post these updates. And until next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.